Believe it or not, I graduated from my undergrad with a degree in computer science 5 years ago. That also means I've been working in big tech as a software engineer for 5 years, and I've learned a ton along the way. In today's video, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the lessons learned as well as some tips to make your life easier as a software engineer in the industry. My first lesson learned is that in the real world, there really isn't nearly as much focus on algorithmic style questions like the ones that you're asked in the standard leak code style interviews. I understand that it is the standard practice of assessing candidates using these algorithmic questions, and I do agree that it is a good way to test candidates' ability to understand common data structures and implement algorithms. But in my experience, on a day-to-day basis, the projects that you're going to be working on, it's not very akin to the style and definitely not the pressure that you have in an algorithmic style interview. Number one, nowadays there is the internet, and when I say the internet, that also includes ChatGPT, Copilot, etc. And using the internet, chances are you are going to be able to find some solutions or potential solutions to help you, so you don't have that kind of time crunch where you're forced to implement a data structure or something like that. Really what you are expected to be able to do is to be able to solve and implement a problem. And for the most part, you can kind of do that however you want, obviously within the constraints and security expectations for your company. But the main point and the tip or lesson that I want to drive home is that you just have to be able to pass the interview. Once you get the job and actually are working the job, chances are you're not going to need to be doing leak code, practicing it regularly, just because there's so much more in software engineering than being able to solve like a medium level question in 40 minutes. My second lesson learned or tip is to look for ways to deliver impact outside of just coding. Now, there's a couple reasons why I bring this up. The first is that, if you're working at a big tech company, chances are everybody can code. Now, I kind of exaggerate when I say everybody, but especially the software engineers, they all went through the process that I just talked about with the algorithmic style questions, which, there's so many issues with that. But for the most part, it does prove that all the candidates can code at a certain level. And going beyond the software engineers, you never know, because at these big tech companies, lots of times the customer support engineers or the cloud architects or the technical PMs, and chances are your manager, they all could code at some point. And if anything, they at least can probably read code pretty well. Being able to read code, and you're going to get more and more involved in reviewing code as you spend more and more time in the industry. That's just kind of how it goes. As you become more experienced, you also might have less time to code yourself. So delivering impact is so much more than delivering code. There's also going to be times where there are lulls in the work. You might have a pull request open, or you're waiting on a blocker or a dependency. So you need to be able to find ways to deliver impact outside of code. And I think that actually helps you differentiate yourself from others. So in many ways, this could be with soft skills like mentoring others or helping onboard new hires. But also this could be with updating documentation, which is something that is often very neglected on these bigger companies or teams that grow rapidly. My third tip or lesson learned is the importance of investing in a good work from home setup. Now, I understand that some companies, who are calling their employees back for a full return to office, but even then you're going to be working from home sometimes, or you're going to have to do work after hours, etc. Now, in my case, personally, I work entirely remotely, so I work from home all the time. And in my opinion, the most important thing to invest in was a good standing desk. I just upgraded to the Flexispot E6 standing desk, which I would highly recommend. I didn't always have a standing desk. Getting a good standing desk has been so important for both my mood and energy, but also it was killing my back to be sitting down all day in front of the computer. So being able to sit and stand is a very nice luxury. In particular, the Flexispot E6 is a very sturdy desk and has 5-year coverage on the desk and motors. Yes, I said motors plural because it has dual motors, unlike most other standing desks or standing desks that I've had in the past where it's just one motor. So this means it is much stronger than other desks. As you can see, it can lift both me as well as the normal items on my desk pretty easily. I would say I weigh around 160 pounds, and these dual motors are still whisper quiet. It also has some other cool features such as the ability to save 4 height presets. So in my case, I do standing, seated, as well as 2 other heights in case my girlfriend wants to use my desk. It also has an anti-collision feature, which I've actually had come in handy a couple of times now. I have a bad tendency to not check for other items when I raise and lower the desk. So in my case, it is my desk chair where I go from standing to sitting and I lower it and forget that my desk chair is tucked under the desk. So this anti-collision feature basically senses that and prevents my chair from getting crushed, which is huge because I love my chair. It also has some other cool features. It has wheels, so we can clean around it pretty easily and move it around when we're cleaning the apartment. If you want this exact desk, I will leave a link in the description so you can get it directly from Amazon, and I highly recommend it. Moving on to my 4th lesson learned, and that is just that working in big tech has its own set of drawbacks and challenges. Now, I don't want to be hypocritical or seem ungrateful because I have wanted to work in big tech and I enjoy working at big tech and have no intention of leaving my job at Microsoft anytime soon. But I just want to point it out because I think a lot of people have very, very lofty expectations. You know, they see the show Silicon Valley on HBO, which is a great show, by the way. Very, very funny and has a lot of truth behind it. Or they see The Internship with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, which is another movie that I would recommend. But people expect it to be like a very cushy, easy job.
Well, why are you guys still coming in?
Rest and vest.
Nowadays, especially in today's market, it's simply not the case. Like, chances are you are going to have to work moderately hard, and there's definitely not an expectation or the vibe that you can kind of just float around, work very little. Granted, there are exceptions to every rule. I just want to point that out because I think it gets glorified a lot and people really have the mindset of big tech or bust, especially on the CS Careers subreddit or on Blind. There are also some drawbacks logistically with working in big tech where it's just like any other big company where it can be difficult to find resources and coordinate and find the right point of contact just because these companies are so large. And thankfully, I don't feel it now and I'm on a very good team, but I have felt it in the past on some other teams where I feel like I'm just a cog in the machine and it's very hard to feel like you're making impact and understanding your role and how it contributes to the company's goals. Sometimes that gets lost in translation when the company is, 100,000 people or more. So just wanted to point that out because I think a lot of people have the mindset of, big tech or bust. And really, there are a lot of challenges with working in big tech and drawbacks that you may not run into if you're working at a smaller, faster moving startup or something. So I don't want to seem ungrateful, but I just felt the need to point that out since I see so many people, really busting their butt to try and get a big tech job specifically. Last but not least, my 5th and final lesson learned is that imposter syndrome goes away. To be honest, I would say as a new grad engineer, I wasn't that confident just because I was never a computer science student that was super, super passionate about it. Like, I wasn't one of those students that enjoys coding for fun and does personal projects on the side all the time. I was more of your standard run-of-the-mill, went to class, tried to pass my computer science classes, get your degree, that kind of engineer. I have felt like I am the least knowledgeable and least experienced in the room, and frankly, that is true. The difference is over time and working in the industry for 5 years, you become very comfortable with that feeling just because you become more and more confident with your ability to pick up new things and learn quickly. I have to thank the Georgia Tech Master's program because that also instilled a lot of that confidence in me because I knew, if I could do a master's program part-time while working full-time, I obviously have the capacity to learn new things pretty quickly. And a good way to reframe it, I think, if you are feeling imposter syndrome when you join a new project or start working as a software engineer, is that it's a new opportunity. Because if you are, in fact, the person who knows the least about a subject or topic, which, by the way, is very, very common. Pretty much anytime you start a new project or start looking at a new framework, etc., there's going to be someone else or others that know a lot more than you. But a good way to reframe it is to think of it as an opportunity, because you basically have the opportunity to learn from these other people and learn new things. Whereas if you are stuck on the same project, doing the same thing over and over, it would frankly be kind of boring. So that's my last lesson learned, is that imposter syndrome doesn't really exist after you work in the industry long enough, just because you realize that everybody goes through this process of learning new things. And as a software engineer, it's never ending, because like I said, like there's new technologies coming out all the time. You're going to be working on different projects or different features that require different technologies. So it's just a never ending learning process, and you become very comfortable with the feeling that you don't know as much as everyone else. If you ever feel like you know everything, in my opinion, that's a good sign that you should probably start looking for new opportunities, just so that way you can challenge yourself to really embark on a new growth journey. Anyways, these are just my 5 lessons learned and some tips to help you, and hopefully you found it interesting. If you have any thoughts, let me know in the comments. And as always, I appreciate you guys watching this video, so be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.